Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to another Sunday live stream. Give people a few minutes to trickle in. If you are listening, please head to the chat. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, I do have the chat limited to subscribers, but you only have to be subscribed for 5 minutes to participate in chat. So let's see what we can do today. All right, well, while everybody's trickling in, let's take a look at Distro Watch. And I will share my screen. All right, there were a couple of new releases this week. So FreeBSD has a new release candidate out for 13.1. We've got Deepin 20.5. And then all of the Ubuntu variants are in beta 1 of the 22.04 LTS. And also a new version of Gparted. And a beta of Fedora 36. Phoenix. And of course, I think we talked about this last week, the Porteous Kiosk 5.4. So, all right, we've got Joseph in chat. Let's see what we've got here. After dealing with wake from suspend issues recently, I made some changes, including switching the kernel, resetting CPU power level to default, and power cycling the machine. Seems okay for now. Desktop effect I recently added may have been the culprit of performance issue. I disabled it and will be closely monitoring the system for the next several days while running 5.17. If the issue still persists, I'll be switching to MX Lite XFCE. That will be the end of Arch-based distros for me. All right. PC was slow when waking from sleep earlier. Okay. Yeah, these days I'm running most of my Linux via virtual machines, so I don't tend to have issues with sleep, but at the same time I don't run much Arch-based stuff. My most recent experiment with something that was Arch based and actually was Manjaro based was Mabox or Mabox was the Manjaro plus OpenBox that I've got here. I think we did a demo of it a week or two ago. It's all right. It's outside of what I would feel comfortable with using in any sort of production environment. But generally I go with something Debian based, whether that be real Debian or Ubuntu server. On the desktop, I really am enjoying Pop! OS at the moment. And I've got one physical machine running Pop! OS right now, which is going all right. I'm going to be moving some equipment around and bringing into the fray a machine I picked up off from eBay. Another Dell Optiplex. This one's a 3020, and had everything except for the storage drive. So I had a 240 gig solid state sitting around, waiting for a machine to go into, and so that will go into that machine, and I'll see what I want to put on it. So it's just an i5, fourth gen i5, I believe. So that'll be interesting. Let's see. Started happening on my KDE desktop out of the blue a few days after updates. Interesting. KDE development seems too focused on Wayland, so now X11 seems increasingly unstable. So, you know, I like the idea of Wayland in theory, but until the remote support apps are updated to work with Wayland, to me it's a non-starter, because I do so much of my work connecting to remote machines. I need to have X for, Splashtop is what I'm using for most things right now. And so I don't know if we fire up Splashtop. What do I have running right now? Well, let's turn on. Turn on my other Optiplex and see if this comes up in the list. That's one thing I've noticed about Wayland, is that they don't seem to have taken into consideration the remote support software. And maybe, the commercial companies like Splashtop are just slow at updating, or they don't want to deal with it until everybody's moved to it, or it's hard to tell. I mean, there's always, the Google Remote Connect, whatever browser-based stuff that they have available, that could be an option in the short term. I'm not sold on using browser-based apps for everything under the sun. From a security standpoint and just peace of mind, I guess. Maybe I'm just getting old and set in my ways, and should consider it, but okay, so where that's why that's not showing up. Should be showing up, but hold that thought for a moment. Yeah, no dice on connecting to that machine today. I was trying an experiment with these. Let me bring myself back up full screen. These monitor faker units. I don't know what they're technically called, but basically it's supposed to trick the machine into thinking it's got a monitor attached and allow a more headless operation, because not all computers are compliant with the way they should work headless, regardless of whether they've got a physical monitor attached. So, yeah, I've sort of had mixed luck with these at this point, but still playing around with that and trying to see what I can accomplish with it. So, guess that is out of the question today. So let's let me bring my screen back up. Good morning, Tony and James and Kawalis66. Welcome. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name too badly. So, yeah. My main topic today, since I didn't get around to doing an outline, I did install the Ubuntu 22.04 beta. This is in Proxmox. And unfortunately, that's about as big as I can make it right at the moment. Yeah. So far, it's been stable. The day and a half that I've had it installed and messing with it. I don't know why the home folder gets set to some crazy location, but probably has something to do with the VM. I do have the Spice, or not Spice. I do have the QEMU guest agent installed and enabled here. And so far that seems to be working all right. I'm not sure if that... Oh, that does decide to work now. Okay. So, yeah. Good morning, David. Welcome. So, yeah. This is sort of an interesting release. 22.04 is going to be an interesting release because it does have GNOME 42, but it's sort of the way the people at Canonical have implemented this. It's sort of a mashup of GNOME 42, GNOME 41, GTK3, GTK4. It's a little bit of everything thrown in here. So like the file manager, this is 42. And you know, it's everything that I've tested so far has been functional. I even went so far as to run an initial backup with their backup utility. And so this is, they call it backups, but it's Deja Dupe. This is 42.9. And the interesting thing I wanted to point out about this is I do have my backup location mounted, and it is a front end for duplicity. So, you know, whether that is good, bad, or indifferent, you know, it is what it is. So we could run another backup. I don't believe anything has changed. it should just go fairly quick. And then if we look at the backup location again, it's got another set of files here, dated, stamped with the time, and compared to the initial set here at 10:13 this morning, it's very small. So, I mean, of course, we could do the normal thing where we come in and we start adding folders and files. We'll just do a quick text document. Okay, so we've got test one there, and then, you know, we come into the terminal and make this interesting. Okay, whatever. Anyways, we could duplicate this. And then rerun the backup, and it will do what it's supposed to do. I'm going to say remember password. So the one thing I do like about this little backup utility is you can have it remember your password, which again is a questionable security practice, but on a home network, you should be okay for most things. You can set it to backup automatically. You can restore from your backups, and it will look at stuff out here. So you can see the different files are out there on the backup. It's nice that it backs up the .ssh folder. Some of this other stuff you may or may not want to put in your exclude area of the backup utility, but hey, it's all good. Let's see. If I switch from KDE to XFCE, then I would be glad to give up some visual appeal for more speed and stability. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind XFCE. It's a little less bling than some of the other desktops, but I've actually been looking at doing more with keyboard bindings and different things. I'm not sure I want to necessarily switch to a tiling desktop, but for instance, like in Pop OS, they have some of those tiling features available without going full bore into, you know, like i3 or something like that. So, Chris, you made it out. Welcome. Tried Mint Live USB, and my laptop keeps freezing up when on a 4K external display. Seems to occur on Ubuntu-based distros, Fedora and Garuda. Distro needs to be lightweight. To me, that sounds like it's potentially a driver issue. I've not had that specific experience, but there are probably others out there who have. So, all right. Um, yeah. So far, um, 22.04 is shaping up to be a pretty decent release as far as I can tell. I mean, I've been testing the daily releases on and off since November or December. Um, it's um, still one of those things. Some of this is stuff I'd never use. Um, I am happy that it picks up my printer so easily. um, which seems to be something related to Ubuntu development. I tried some Debian-based releases, and they do not have quite an as automatic a printer solution as what is done here. So we got our new logo for Ubuntu. This is just the basic specs that I give to a VM: 4 gigs of RAM, about a 34 gig virtual disk, and 2 processors. Is GNOME 42. This is on Wayland. It does pick up that virtualization is KVM. Everything seems to be going pretty decent at this point in the development cycle. I spent a number of years as a software tester, and so after I left that job, I wanted nothing to do with testing software. But I've grown to like testing some of the pre-release versions of Linux and see if I can find issues. On a couple of occasions, I have, but usually somebody else has beat me to reporting them. So I'm sorry that I have a little bit of a life, I guess, and can't jump on these releases the minute they're out and start testing immediately. But yeah, almost every time I found something that has been a little off, somebody else has already reported it. So I do want to give a shout out to Chris for suggesting Rustic backup. That was a nice little exercise. I do have a part 2 that I've been working on for the Mac side, and then it's basically just re-recording it on a Linux desktop and pushing the same thing. The difference is with the Linux side of things, you've got like systemd stuff you can do, and yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole to go down by itself. I'll also be looking at Rustic on Windows. I have also been delving a little bit into the documentation and some projects that work with Rustic. There's one called AutoRustic, which once I finish the initial Rustic series, I will likely jump into this because this is the thing that that piqued my interest. You have a YAML file for configuration, which, you know, I'm glad I went through the steps to build out the video I did so far. But this configuration file seems pretty slick, and something that I think would be nice to use. So yeah, I'm still playing with environment variables and different things for just a straight command line bash script type approach. You know, I'm doing it on the Mac first because I haven't been giving Mac OS much love. So I am getting that pushed through first, and then the Windows and Linux versions will be coming real soon now, which I know is famous last words in the IT world, but that's kind of the near future plans. Four gig is a bit low for GNOME. Garuda needs at least 8. Yeah, I haven't found 4 gig to be too constraining for GNOME unless you start adding a bunch of extra stuff on top of GNOME. Garuda has a lot of extra stuff that they have there by default, from when I've experimented with it. And yeah, I got away with 6 gigs for Garuda. Yeah, if I had beefier machines with unlimited RAM, then 8 gigs would really be the sweet spot. But I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the way things are running. I'm not doing anything that intensive on my VMs that I need to have that extra RAM. A lot of what I do in my VMs is server based, so a lot of my VMs are 2 gigs and running a command line only server distro. Sometimes I'll put Cockpit on top just so I have something quick and easy to jump into. Much of the time I don't. So yeah, the yeah. Tried Sparky Linux OpenBox semi-rolling version in VirtualBox and theming it like it was like going down the rabbit hole. Yeah. That's the thing though. You know, you can either go down the rabbit hole and do all the theming and customizations yourself, or you can find the easy way out, either finding a distro that's already customized or finding some customization scripts, reading through the code and then running them. Hopefully first on a VM before doing it on any system that you're going to be using for any length of time. But yeah, I tend to not customize too heavily, other than colors in my terminal. You know, if I'm running a GNOME desktop, then I will install GNOME Tweaks, which I don't know if that's the correct package name off the top of my head. So we'll get that installed. Yeah. So let's see. This is interesting. I'll look into AutoRustic. My bash script now links to a file for excludes and a file to read for includes. Yep, that's exactly what I'm looking at. I've got the paths for those in environment variables, and I'm just trying to iron out the command line before I do the finish on the next video. So yeah, I'm guessing that the reason the Restic on macOS didn't get a lot of views is simply because people don't make the connection that, hey, this is bash, it's the same. You know, you can use the same set of commands on Mac OS or Linux, and basically the changes you need to make are paths, and you know, on Mac OS it's slash users and then your username, and on Linux it's slash home and then your username. On Linux, you've got a folder called videos. On the Mac, it's movies. You know, just minor little things like that. You know, if you're versed in all three operating systems, moving between them for a tool like Restic is going to be trivial. You know, the big difference is paths. You know, minor differences between Mac OS and Linux, and then you go to Windows and you've got drive letters. There you go. Mind blown revelation here. The end times must be near, blah blah blah, all that good stuff. Who would have thought we would have a cross-platform tool where all you'd have to do is factor in paths and be done with it. Seems like you're using the ATEM but streaming from Streamyard. I started using the ATEM this morning. I am using strictly StreamYard today. Still trying to get office stuff straightened out and moved around, and I still have my expensive box, my CalDigit Thunderbolt 4 monster box here that I still don't have plugged in yet. Once I get this in place, which is, it's getting closer, I've moved some more stuff out of the immediate office area to make room for it. But yeah, once I can get that into place and get some cabling cleaned up a little bit. I'm going to be going whole hog on the ATEM. I think I've got most of my learning curve tackled at this point. I've continued to experiment with it, mostly with videos that I've just done as private and deleted afterwards, just for the learning experience. And yeah, I'm excited, still excited about making more use of that and bumping up the actual resolution of my live streams, because yeah, I I cheaped out when I did Streamyard and only got the first tier of the paid plan, which limits you to 720p. The full HD package was like $20 difference a year versus the cost of the ATEM Mini Pro. And so I just couldn't justify paying that for more than, for a year and not having anything other than a stack of videos to show for it. So that's what prompted me to push up the purchase of the ATEM, and I'm hoping again soon that will be my preferred method of live streaming on Sundays, and we'll get to some other plans in a little bit, but yeah. So we installed the GNOME tweaks. GNOME tweaks. Kill this. Extensions. Okay. Tweaks. All right, so you've got different things you can do with themes here. Taking the shell option out. Background, you can change. Yeah, so, but you can do fonts, you can do keyboards and mouse and all this kind of fun stuff. I suppose I should put this back on screen. And yeah, so startup applications, top bar. I really, well, bugger. I really want to get rid of the home folder on the desktop. And that's something I had used GNOME tweaks for before, but I'll have to dig into that and find out where that option is moved to. Because it seems like that is no longer available. Center new windows, resize with secondary click. Okay. In any event, let me catch up some more on chat. Ricing OpenBox would be an Arch user's ultimate challenge. Yeah, I mean, OpenBox has been around for forever and a day, so I guess it's really only a challenge if you haven't used OpenBox and customized it before. And I'm sure there are scripts out there to make that easier. There's a script out there for everything. If I were to attempt to rice OpenBox, I would first install Tint 2 and Plank. Yeah. A utility I've recently begun using is KDE Connect. Like the way it connects my Android cell phone to my Pop! OS workstation, handy for work. Yeah, I haven't used KDE Connect before, but um, it is rather interesting. I've read about it. Is that going to launch? There it goes. Hopefully, it didn't launch twice. Um, the end times may already be here. Oh, hey, Terminal for Life, welcome. Glad to have you here today. Looks like I arrived late as usual. Hey, it happens to all of us. And thank you, James. Please, if you haven't, smash the like button. Much appreciated. Helps the YouTube algorithm send more people to my channel. And I actually had an exchange, an email exchange with Willie Howe yesterday, who also has a channel full of knowledge. And you know, one of his remarks was that he thinks my channel should be much bigger than it is. So yes, please like the video. Any help I can get is appreciated. So thank you again, James, for bringing that up. Karma will be kind to me today. Isn't there a GNOME Extensions Manager available from FlatHub? Possibly. I haven't spent a lot of time in FlatHub yet. I think you've forgotten that configuring GNOME is illegal. It's forbidden to attempt to configure GNOME at all. It's against the rules. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm at the point that with using so many virtual machines, I snapshot things often enough that if I mess it up, I can roll it back, and that's always a good feeling to go into a round of customization with. GNOME and Budgie are a bit restrictive. Cinnamon and XFCE are highly customizable. Yes. Giving your wealth of knowledge as someone who does Linux stuff professionally, I also think this channel should have many more subscribers. Well, thank you. I appreciate hearing that, and you know, it's little bits of encouragement from other creators that has kept me going when I've had doubts about the channel. So thank you all for the kind words and encouragement along the way, and you know, that goes for all of you guys in here as well. Tony and David and everybody else that comes on a regular basis on a Sunday, or you know, leaves comments on my videos. It has a tendency to brighten my day a little bit, and you know, keep me going and recording videos. Plus, you're friendly and laid back. Well, I try to be. Sometimes to my detriment, but yeah. Someday my karma will run over their dogma, and it'll be okay. Take that how you will. Yeah. It's also illegal to remove the tag from my sofa, but I did it anyways. Yeah, sofas, mattresses, pillows, what have you. Oh my. Yeah. So no big changes in the software center app. I mean, they're pushing snaps for a lot these days. Um, I've got very mixed feelings about that. I, I'm on board with the idea that ultimately they're going to be on the losing end of it. Um, and we do get Firefox 98 as default. Of course, it's installed as a snap. Um, the what do we have for LibreOffice version? Yes, I probably did know. No, I'm not going to read it. This is 7.3.2, so this is the latest version as of this week, I believe. So that's good. Um, I think LibreOffice is being packaged as all three universal formats on Linux: App Image, Flatpak, and Snap. And there are still distro specific versions or package manager specific versions available as well for a number of distributions. Outside of doing my video stuff, I spend a lot of time in LibreOffice. I've never been a hardcore Microsoft Office user. I got through undergrad and grad school using LibreOffice, and since the schools I went to accepted electronic assignment submissions as PDFs, nobody was the wiser. Most professors, if they can open the file, they don't really push you too much. Or at least that was my experience. So, all right. Well, let's see what else we've got here. I keep hearing about how Ubuntu is on the way out, dying. What do you think? Sensationalism and hyperbole, or a possibility? I I don't know. I think their time ruling as the most popular desktop Linux distribution may be um, on a downward slide. There are certainly some nice distributions that have come out since Ubuntu has been a thing. In 2004 was their first released. Garuda has come along. And some of the other ones, if they already existed, there were a number that I didn't know about. So, um, you, you know, I hadn't really messed with Gen 2 before Ubuntu came out. I hadn't messed with anything Arch based. There's so much going on, and the battle right now is in a couple of places. Who's going to win the war for the universal package manager, and when is Wayland going to be the default windowing system and get major projects on board, specifically going down the road into remote desktop type applications, which most of them don't work on Wayland currently, and that's like my one huge stickling point with Wayland is I want to connect to it remotely. And X allows you to do that. X is still a huge mess. Uh, Multiple decade old code base, and, a lot of stuff that was based on decisions that were originally made in the 80s. So, yes, I acknowledge that we need a way forward. The sooner the better. And if they can, you know, if we can find our way out of this, universal package format war in the near term, it's only going to be better for everybody. Unfortunately, much like Betamax versus VHS and HD DVD versus Blu-ray, it's going to get dragged out for a while longer. And yes, I know there were other format wars in video, like Laserdisc versus CED, if you go back that far. And yeah. So, the interesting thing to me is on Windows, you've still got exe installers and you've got MSI installers. On Mac OS, you've still got stuff distributed as PKG files and you've got DMG files. So it really comes down to mindset and what the majority of projects are going to standardize on, but I don't think any of them are going to go away completely. If I had my wish, Snaps would go back to their roots and just focus on server and IoT type applications. And then AppImage and Flatpak can fight it out for desktop stuff. That would be my feeling on the whole thing after using all three. But I've gone down a rabbit hole now, I guess. So let's see. Fedora is like the new Ubuntu these days. I don't know. I still see far fewer tutorials and articles about Fedora than I do for Ubuntu. Ubuntu for Enterprise is going nowhere. Yes. I mean, the thing that seals that into place is, well, a lot of things, but one of the highest profile things is Windows Subsystem for Linux. Ubuntu was the first. And, say what you will about that project. I find it to be a tool to bridge the gap. For all intents and purposes, you could really use Restic, the Linux version of Restic on WSL and back up Windows. And then never have to technically deal with drive letters. So there are advantages, and especially when it comes to that, I absolutely agree, Chris. It's not going anywhere. For more home and hobby users, I have seen so many ebbs and flows in the Linux world in the last 25 years that I've been using it that, you just kind of roll with it. I started with Red Hat. I went to Mandrake, OpenSUSE, um, Caldera Open Linux, and I've run a half a dozen other distros over the years. I spent a good number of years from like 2017 until 2005 ish on Red Hat type distros, um, and then I jumped on the Ubuntu bandwagon on and off since 2006, and man, it's a whole lot nicer than it was in 2006. I'll tell you that. um, but yeah, I mean, PC Linux OS is another one. It was an offshoot of Mandriva or Mandrake, one of those, which in turn was an offshoot of Red Hat. And this was pre Red Hat Enterprise Linux. This was when it was just called Red Hat. um, but I'm old and I have the gray hair to prove it, and every one of these gray hairs I've earned, mostly from dealing with Windows users. But that's a whole other story. I've not heard any negative about Ubuntu. Then again, I don't follow trends or marketing battles. Yeah. Um, the thing with Ubuntu is that it's everywhere. It just you have to be super hardcore into Linux, and once upon a time I was there. I wanted to see Linux everywhere. I wanted to see it supplant Windows on the desktop. And yeah, there was a time that Linux actually had more desktop market share than Mac OS. However, or I believe it did, or they were about neck and neck anyways. However, um, you, you know, uh, the fight between Linux distros is like the fight between religious factions. You've got the Mac OS camp, you've got the Windows camp, you've got the Linux camp, and then you've got the outliers that are the BSD guys. Um, which I've dabbled in that world as well, and I found it to be less welcoming than Linux was, and that's why I just dabble there, and I don't engage too much. Um, at the end of the day, I've come to the realization, the older I get, I've come to the realization that computers are tools, and you use the best tool for the job, and that's that. Um, in an ideal world, would I like to see everybody using Linux? Sure. Um, the best shot I feel that Linux has in the long term right now is Chrome OS. And you can make the argument that that's not a true Linux, and yes, I've heard it all. But right now, that's where it's gaining market share, and most people don't even know it's Linux. So that's that, I guess. Manjaro and its community has become toxic these days. I've never really engaged with their community, so I learned early on with Linux that after being told in the forums, and this was like 1997, 8, 9, after being told RTFM, so I started reading the flippin' manual, and I started spending time doing home labs before people were widely calling them home labs. And yeah, I openly admit there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot I've never attempted to do. But at the same time, I see a lot of people out there that um, never learned the basics well. And in some cases, they don't even have the the basic concepts down that would propel them forward more quickly. So, excuse me. You know, it is what it is. I guess I sort of adopted that lone wolf type of approach to using Linux, and it became sort of a hobby. And sometimes I would call it a passion. Other times I don't. You know, but realistically, I have to bounce between Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, and that's the majority of the reason I don't spend a lot of time customizing any of them to any great extent. You know, my big hang up with Windows was, you know, after using Linux for a number of years, was that it never had its own package manager by default. And in the last 18 months, that has changed. You've got Winget. I've been using Chocolatey even longer on Windows. And, you know, it is what it is. I try to move as fluidly as possible between operating systems as I can. And I know that's not for everybody, but given the work I do, I don't have much of an option at the moment. I'm definitely not ready to switch to Wayland, but it does seem pretty cool for some things. It's super smooth and convenient, not needing a compositor. Yes. The code base is also much smaller than X, and you know, a lot of other behind the scenes details that make it attractive. So I'm absolutely on board. I'd love to switch, but other than testing, like this VM I've got up right now, this is actually Wayland. Excuse me. But if we log out, there we go. We can, of course, switch to X. And everything seems about the same there. So make sure it did in fact switch me. Yeah, X11. So, you know, I go back and forth, at least during testing, but normally I will try to default everything to X at this point, just for a little more consistency across different VMs that I'm using. Yeah, elementary OS. That's going to be interesting to see the way that plays out. I guess the project founders are having some major disagreements. eBuzz complained about how Manjaro has become unstable and the support team was being abusive towards the users. Yeah, that's sort of been an ongoing theme about maintainers and support people being abusive. But it is what it is. I think my main complaint with snaps is the proprietary nature of them. Yeah. That's a big thing in my book as well. I think if they had stuck with server and IoT, it would have been less an issue for most people. But so much has been made in the Linux press on the internet about this that I'm not sure if there is a way to recapture the mind share. Used to love Caldera, yes. I liked it because it had Tetris in the installer, and so while it was copying files, you could play Tetris. So now installs are so quick that there would be no point. Excuse me. That was my experience dabbling in BSD as well. Tried out OpenBSD a little while back. It was interesting. Seems to be a good server, but not for a regular desktop user. Yeah. The BSD version that I was most interested in, and I keep dabbling with on and off every year or so, I'll load it in a VM and play with it, is Dragonfly BSD. And the reason for my interest in that is because the guy that is in charge of that project, he was a developer of a his name is Matt Dillon. He made a product called Dice for the Amiga back in the 90s, which stood for Dillon's Integrated C Environment, and it was a C compiler, and it was nice to use at the time. So 2022 is the year of Linux. Well, yeah. Everybody declares every year as the year of Linux. I think I've been hearing this since 1998 or 9. Still waiting. Still waiting. With the new Ubuntu, is LibreOffice installed as a snap? Let's see. I don't see it in Snap List, but let's go to Ubuntu software and look at installed. It's canonical branded, so I'm guessing that is a snap. Oh yeah, source Snap Store. Yeah, I have. There was one daily install that I did that I uninstalled the Snap version of LibreOffice and I installed the Flatpak version of LibreOffice. And from the testing I did, and granted this was on a VM, But the testing I did showed that the flat pack was actually faster, which lines up with what a lot of people have been writing about in different on different websites about snaps being slow. Um, you know, it comes down to you know, for me it comes down to um, is the decrease in speed unbearable, and then is the snap version lagging behind current. Once the snap version lags behind current, um, that's when I tend to uninstall the snap and install, you know, the flat pack, or I've experimented with the app image version as well. Pretty sure that was LibreOffice that I installed as an app image at one point. Yeah, this VM, I've got two cores allocated towards it. This the machine it's running on is actually a Dell Optiplex with an i5 or i7 in this one. Um, that's my 7010. This is an i5, and it's third gen i5. So my big Proxmox server that I currently have turned off. It's an old 1U micro super micro server, and that's actually got two Xeon processors in it. But that was before Intel started doing the power reduced versions of Xeon. Um, so I tend not to keep that running all the time if I'm not doing something specific with it. And then of course I've got Proxmox backup server running, but really it's just the two Optiplex machines right now that are working for my Proxmox stuff, and I don't even have a I don't even have since I don't have three machines running, I don't have a high availability cluster going right now. But I'm hoping to at some point, excuse me, I'm hoping at some point to bring that back. I did one Proxmox cluster video, and that was kind of fun to play with the live migration of VMs across machines. The You can't live migrate containers, but you can live migrate regular VMs. So that is pretty cool there. So yeah, nice. Got a dash. Take care. Keep up the good work. Thank you for stopping in, and have a good remainder of your day. I remember when Intel made 7th gen X series i5s and i3s. That was a joke. Yeah. Well, um, other than a couple of machines, I tend to be behind the curve on home lab equipment. Um, this Optiplex 3020 I picked up 2 weeks ago. I got it on eBay for $40. And it's like, okay, well, for home lab stuff, for, experimenting with, pfSense or OpenSense on a physical box, it's perfect. It's, you know, it does what I want it for. And I've got, like I said, I've got an extra solid state sitting around, which will go into that, and I'll get something loaded up on it. It may temporarily end up being a DAF file server so that I can finish ripping all of my CDs to FLAC and have those all sitting on my network. So once they're all ripped, then I will move DAF file back to a VM. And since DAF file supports zero tier, I did do an experiment when I had that VM running before I blew it up, where I was able to access my music collection off-site, and so that was nice. Had my phone connected to zero tier, and I was actually driving down the road and listening to music that was sitting here in my apartment. And the best part of it for me was I didn't have to punch holes in my firewall to allow it to get in. So all for that. I really like the SD-WAN or overlay networks, or whatever they're calling them this week. It's nice addition, nice tool set to have available for different projects. So let's just pop this out one more time. And all right. I thought the i5-7640X CPU was funny. Yeah, I've not really followed Intel that closely. I was always more of an AMD guy. You know, it's at this point I use what I can acquire inexpensively. and lately, the past couple of years, that's been used machines that are off lease, and in this area particular to me, it ends up being optiplexes. And that's okay, because that's what I've got to deal with at work currently, is for staff machines is optiplexes. So yeah, I end up working on those probably more than I'd like to. So all right, we've talked through a lot of what I had planned. We've showed a couple of things in the new version of Ubuntu. Are there any lingering questions in the chat? Are there any suggestions for topics you'd like to see sooner than later? I am at this point, I've got a bit of a plan for the month of April. I want to finish doing Rustic videos for, well, there's one more for the Mac. The videos for Linux, it will likely be one video for Linux, one video for Windows. I'll probably touch on AutoRustic with the config file approach, which Rustic proper doesn't seem to have the capability built into the base utility, which, you know, whatever. But yeah, I've got a few things planned for April. I am looking at adding a live stream. and I'm trying to figure out what evening to do it on. There has been a little bit of upheaval in my day job, so I want to make sure that I'm not going to interfere with that at all. So it might be a Friday night type of live stream. Maybe looking at 8 p.m. Eastern, which, hopefully will allow people on the West Coast to join. That'd be 5 p.m. Pacific time. But we'll see. I'll probably put a poll out on the community tab here the next day or two, just to get some feedback from people. My goal is to keep the Sunday morning, whether it remains weekly or moves to a bi-weekly. I'm not 100% sure yet. For the month of April, it will likely remain weekly. But then as I get moving more with the Friday night live stream, then it may become an alternating week type of live stream situation. Because then, I have at least a couple Sundays completely open every month that I can play with. So that is sort of my plan right now. And of course, with the new version of Ubuntu coming out on the 21st, which is their targeted release date, I will likely be taking a look at some of the other variations or sub distributions of Ubuntu as well, and just to kick things off and push forward. There might even at some point be a video on fog on Ubuntu 22.04. I've not even tested that yet, but that might be a thing. I want to keep pushing on the Pixie Boot approach, and maybe doing a standalone Pixie Boot server with Rescuezilla and Redo Rescue and Clonezilla all as options. And the low-hanging fruit way to do that might be to use Fog as a base, modify the Pixie Boot options for that as a first step, and then move to just a straight up server install with the Pixie Boot stuff on top of it and the ISO images that I want to boot from. So that's all in the planning and experimentation phase at the moment. And hopefully it will lead to some good videos this month and maybe some more channel growth. So that's kind of where things are. That was my big announcement I was saving towards the end here, but I don't know. The official subscriber count is 3365 as of today. So it's growing. It's not growing leaps and bounds, but it is growing. So I'm trying to be happy with the growth, and as long as it continues to grow, I'm relatively content and looking into some ways I can kickstart this a little bit. I've even explored the idea of using some resources through Fiverr to do some additional work on a handful of individual videos to try to kick the growth into a higher gear. So let's see. An i5 Extreme Edition made no sense at all. Yeah. Was that before they did the i9s? I would think that, the higher tiers make more sense for Extreme Editions for anything, but on the new Ubuntu, is the slimmed down net manager still used? Is the full NM connection editor still? I'm not entirely sure. I haven't got that deep into Network Manager at this point. I need to repost my article on my site about using Rustic with Backblaze. That would be interesting. I'm not a Backblaze user, but I also noticed that I saw some reference to Rustic being able to do SFTP as well, which I do have. I do use rsync.net, so and that will let you use SFTP as well as SSHFS and rsync directly. So if I could do that, that would be even better, because that service is rsync.net uses BSD servers running ZFS or ZFS for our friends across the pond. I try not to leave them out, but it's counterintuitive for this American, middle-aged American guy to try to remember to say ZFS. So I do try. My day job has been crazy as well, mainly to a director vying for senior director. Yeah. My turmoil has been, we've got a new bookkeeper who is making changes, and those changes seem like we're going backwards in some respects. And then my director is leaving the library. So, yeah, we'll see how the new director pans out and what that person wants to put into place. But I am considering my options at the moment, shall we say. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Funny thing about that as well, that director doesn't even have the word vying in his vocabulary. English is not his first or primary language. Sorry, in a bad mood today. That's all right. That same person sent me a message Friday at 10 p.m. moving up one of the April deliveries to Monday morning at 8 a.m. Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Gotta love that situation. One last thing before I go, and well, I guess two things. I want to thank everybody once again for spending 90 minutes with me again on a Sunday. But also, David, are you doing a live stream tonight? I just want to make sure if you're back on track with your live streams, if that's happening. If not, then no worries. I'm just trying to help get the word out there. I know you and Willie Howe and a few others have done the same for me, and you know, I always enjoy it when I show up in a live chat and I get a shout out. So okay, had to cancel. Did have one scheduled. All right, so um, yeah, no live stream tonight for David. Um, but we will. Well, thank you. I I appreciate the plugs everybody gives me, different places as well. You know, I agree with what Willie said in the live chat yesterday about, you know, creators helping each other out and plugging each other's channels, and you know, just trying to stick together towards the betterment of the platform, and getting all of our respective information and opinions and approaches to problem solving out there, so that, you know, people have the opportunity to learn from it. So that is there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of power in that, and you know, who knows. All right. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I need to find out if I'm meeting my dad for lunch this afternoon, and you know, the older he gets, the less I want to turn down those opportunities just to sit and relax and visit with him for an hour or so over a meal. Because someday that won't be an option anymore, and so, you know, if if you've got family out there that you can spend time with, don't squander the opportunity, and enjoy that time, and you know, relax a little bit. It just enjoy the time you've got. So, on that note, thank you all again for coming out, and I will see you again next week, same time, same place. And keep an eye on the channel page for any announcements of any additional live streams that might be coming up. So, thank you all, and I will see you next week. Have a great day.